Welcome back to Murder with the Missus. I'm Darren.
And I'm Amy, and today we're going to tell you about Gareth Williams.
Don't forget to smash that like button. Check out the description for the links of all of our podcast platforms, CashApp, and Buy Me a Coffee. Like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to tell your friends. Welcome back, guys.
We're back.
Yep. So today we got the story of Gareth
Williams. Real quick, I just have to give a shout out to Bean. She is a big supporter of the pod, so thank you, lady.
Hi, Bean.
We had a request to look into more international cases, so as soon as I started looking, this one caught my attention. And here we are. Who's your favorite spy? Or government agent, like James Bond, Jason Bourne, Jack Bauer, Jack Ryan? You got a preference?
Oh, Bond.
How dare you?
What?
Okay, gotcha. Bond. Well,
whatever.
Yeah. Well, not all heroes wear capes. You have the smooth-talking, physical, out-in-the-field people running down the bad guys. And you have the behind-the-scenes geniuses, the code crackers, information gatherers, people doing just as important work without all the confrontation, though, you would think. And this is a story of the spy in the bag. So let's get into it.
What's in the bag?
On August 23rd.
Totally different movie, but you know.
Whole different. Not spies either.
It wasn't even a bag. It was a box.
It's a box.
All right.
On August 23rd of 2010, police are called at 4:30 p.m. to do a welfare check on 31-year-old Gareth. No one has heard from him for a week, and he hasn't been to work in a week either. So they go to his flat in Pimlico, London, England. And when they come into the flat at 4:48, they find a North Face hold-all, a red bag in the bathtub in the en-suite bathroom. They use a knife to cut along the zipper so they wouldn't damage anything because the two zippers where they meet are locked together. Now, as they cut open the bag, the smell of decomposition hits them. Inside of the bag was Gareth, naked. The keys to the lock were under his body inside the bag.
So zipped inside the bag.
Yeah.
And locked from the outside?
Yes. That's
so,
right.
Let me guess.
Go ahead.
Self-harm?
How'd you guess?
Oh, seriously. I was just kidding about that.
Me too.
Golly.
That was actually one thing they ruled out from the get-go. So I was just kidding.
I mean, was he a magician?
No. Well.
I mean, was he?
Well, who knows what he got up to?
I mean, if he's a magician, I've seen those tricks.
I'm not going to lie. Escapism is one of the theories.
Yeah.
But anyways, so it wasn't self-harm. They didn't rule it as self-harm. I was just kidding. His flat was tidy. Things were all in their places. And they find several more North Face bags in his bedroom. So these are not like shopping bags, but they're like sports bags. And the heat in his apartment was all the way up on the highest setting.
Oh, so he was cooking.
Yes. Now let's find out how we got there. Gareth was born in Wales. In fact, the first language he spoke was Welsh. Growing up on the countryside, he did like to ride bikes with his dad. And he didn't really have friends because he was an introvert, but he loved computers. Based on descriptions of him from those who interacted with him as a child and as an adult, they described him as neurodivergent. In school, when they made him go outside, he would actually pace in front of the door until he could get back in to get on the computer. He was smart. And I'm going to try to get this right. So for those of you who know, if I'm wrong, please let me know. But they said he passed his GCSEs by 10 years old. Usually you're around 16 years old when you do that. He completed his A-levels at 13, which is like us graduating high school here in the United States. And he started studying part-time at Bangor University in mathematics while he was still in secondary school. So he had his first degree by the age of 17.
Nice.
I'm telling you, he was smart. And he didn't go unnoticed. He got a job offer and started working for GCHQ as a junior analyst in 2001. Now that's the Government Communications Headquarters, which is the UK's Intelligence, Security and Cyber Agency. Mm-hmm. And they reportedly love a good mathematician and use them as code breakers. Smart. He was now with his people.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, people more like him intellectually. He was developing software and cracking down on terrorist activities. So for 9 years or so, he rented a room in a couple's home in Prestbury. They said he was a perfect tenant. Tidy, quiet. Hell, he didn't even have a radio or anything. In 2010 or the spring of 2009, if you're watching the documentary, reading Wikipedia, or reading one of the many conflicting reports, he was on loan to MI6, the Secret Intelligence Service. So that's how he ended up in Pimlico. Why do I keep saying it weird? Pimlico, in London, where he rented a flat in an MI6 safe house. Now, this flat was about a 5-minute walk from the SIS building. A journalist reported that the inquest evidence indicated Gareth was one of a team of intelligence officers sent to penetrate the U.S. and the UK hacking networks. He attended the 2010 Black Hat briefings, which is a computer security conference for security consulting, training, and briefing to hackers. We know that 2 weeks before his death, he went to DEF CON 18, which is in Vegas here in the States, and that is a hacker convention. Then he stayed an extra week for a little vacation, staying at Caesar's Palace and Trump Las Vegas, spending about $2,000 a day.
Damn, now that's a vacation right there.
Right? I mean, I know in Vegas it's probably really easy to spend that much in a day.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like he's like a kind of like a modern day Alan Turing.
Kind of, yeah.
You know what I mean?
He gave me those vibes. Yeah.
He's like super good with math, and I mean, he didn't
Code cracking.
Yeah, code cracking and everything.
100%.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he was living it up. Now, a few months before this, he had asked to return to GCHQ because he didn't like the, quote, rat race, flashcard competitions, and post-work drinking culture there at MI6. So they were just too much for him.
Dang, MI6, what y'all doing over there?
Too much. Plus, he was missing riding his bike because he's from the countryside, right? So he rides his bike all the time out there. And there's pictures of him all over the internet of him riding in like competitions and stuff or races, what bicyclists do. So he was set to go back home on September 3rd. He was going to go back to his old job. He was going to go back to his little house that he was renting. He called his landlord to see if he could come back and get that old room. And of course, they said yes. So plans were in place. So DEF CON was July 30th through August 1st. Then he stayed another week for vacation, meaning he would have come back to London and worked for about another week and then just completely fell off the grid. On August 23rd, his sister called GCHQ at 11:30 a.m., saying she hadn't been able to get a hold of Gareth for a week and needed to know what was going on. So being in the business he was in, he could never really talk about his work with anyone. So they never knew exactly where he was or what he was doing. But they did talk on the phone, like personally. He did have time off. And it was at 4:40 that MI6 called 999 to do a welfare check. And that is how he was found. So his sister had to call.
In a locked bag in the bathroom.
Yeah, that's how he was found. In a locked bag in his bathroom. Now, there were a couple of cell phones in his flat. One had been factory reset. Hello? And I was looking at the camera. And when they searched the other one, they found that it had been used between 30 minutes to an hour to look at a bondage website. Now, that's not enough time for anyone to think that he was like obsessed or anything. And there were no other spicy sites found on his phone. They did find wigs and about 20 some odd pairs of women's shoes and 20,000 pounds of women's clothes in a closet. So that's about $25,000 worth in the United States. Pounds is their currency, not like weight-wise.
Oh, well, you said 20,000 pounds of women's clothes in the closet. I'm like, they're weighing the clothes?
No. No.
I'm like, what the fuck?
No, it's money.
How many clothes were in there? Oh, about 20,000 pounds.
About 20,000 pounds.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do the imitation. I just had to.
That was bad.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding.
I know.
Now, a A lot of these clothes still had like tags on them and didn't appear to have ever been worn. And the news got a hold of that and ran wild, as they do, calling him a crossdresser who frequented gay bars and attended drag shows. So, okay.
So what does that have to do with being locked in a fucking bag?
What does that have to do with being locked in a bag?
That's so weird.
Nothing. I mean, nothing. Even if he was into all those things, doing all those things, it doesn't change the facts of the case. And here's some more conflicting information. One source says that there were 15 kinds of DNA found in his flat. The documentary says there was only his sister's and 2 MI6 coworkers. But one thing that they can't dispute is that Gareth's fingerprints were not on that lock, and they were not on the rim of that bathtub. No prints were on either. So you can't say that he put the bag in the tub, lowered himself in, and then put himself in there and locked it.
And then wiped his
and
prints
then
off.
Wiped it all off. Yeah.
He's just like,
Yeah. He would have had to. Yeah. So it would have had to been magic, like you said. He magically wiped them off, or he would have had to been wearing gloves, right? Well, there were no gloves on him or in the bag with him. So how do you wipe it off? How do you dispose of gloves if you wore gloves? Like, that doesn't make sense.
There was no sense. There's nothing that made sense in that.
No, none of it. Now, Metropolitan Police Deputy Assistant Commissioner Martin Hewitt said it was possible that he lowered himself into the bag without touching the tub, but an expert says there's no way that he could have locked it. A police spokesperson said if he was alive, he got into it voluntarily, or if not, he was unconscious and placed in the bag. So yeah.
That's crazy.
How else are you going to get in there?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like, how do you...
How?
Yeah.
Just how?
Yeah, just how do you do that?
Yeah. It's
But
special.
anyway, I mean, yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't understand how they could be like, oh, he did that.
Yeah, well, we're going to keep talking about it.
But
now, normally we take an ad break, but this time we don't have an ad. So we just wanted to say that we now have a Buy Me a Coffee account, as well as the Cash App for those who want to contribute. A viewer suggested we do this, so thank you very much for that recommendation.
yeah. Yeah, and I have the links, I'm going to put them up here on the screen. Not that one. There it is. Sorry. Still getting used to all this. But, there it is. We do want to thank everybody that listens.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to pressure anybody into doing anything.
No, we appreciate everyone who's subscribed, shared, commented, liked our videos. That's all free stuff.
Yeah, we just want you to listen.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean,
spread the word.
And if you want to help, cool.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, I'm not asking for nothing. It's just, we always put it out there. Fuck, there's a lot of people out there asking for more.
But you guys are all awesome.
But anyway, yes, a viewer did suggest the Buy Me a Coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that was probably the most helpful thing that anybody has said so far.
That's a pretty cool little thing. You don't have to subscribe, but you can make it like a monthly thing, or you can just donate once. It's a nice thing.
It's a lot nicer than bashing somebody. You know what I mean? So thank you guys. And as always, it's just, thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
And thanks for subscribing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right. So back to the story anyway.
Yeah.
So could they tell if there was any injuries, on the body or to the body or anything?
Well, the heat being on high kind of accelerated the decomp.
Yeah, true.
And soft tissue is the first thing to go. So they wouldn't have been able to see like bruises and stuff. But as far as like broken bones and things, no broken bones, no, nothing like that. But Coroner Fiona Wilcox said that there were no injuries, no sign of a struggle, no alcohol, and no drugs found in his system. There were some reports of him having small amounts of GHB in his system, but she said there wasn't. And Coroner Fiona also said that the death was, quote, unnatural and likely to have been criminally mediated, end quote. And she was satisfied that on the balance of probabilities that Gareth was killed unlawfully. So she's saying he was murdered. Okay. I'm on board.
Yeah.
He died of CO2 poisoning or from a short-acting poison. She rejected suicide, interest in bondage or cross-dressing, or autoerotic activity being involved in his death, and saying that the women's clothes thing was a possible attempt at media manipulation, and the SIS failing to report him missing for 7 days caused extra anguish and suffering for his family and led to the loss of forensic evidence.
So she had a lot to say about that.
She's still very vocal.
But I mean, that's good.
That's good to see.
Yeah, that's really good to see it, because a lot of times it's like, most of them are like, oh, so you say it's this? Okay, yeah, I agree.
We just did a case recently. I can't remember which one it was exactly off the top of my head, but it was literally one where they said the coroner just kind of always went along with whatever the cop said. Like if the cop said, hey, this is accident, then the coroner would make sure her report or their report would line up.
That was the ones that were in Arkansas, right?
No, I want to say it was Lauren Agee.
No, well, the one in Arkansas wasn't much better either.
Right. So we see that a lot. So it's nice to see a coroner who's like, no, I don't agree. So especially since, like, because he wasn't reported for 7 days by his work. Like if you're working an important job like that, especially at that high risk of your like security and stuff, like you would think that they would want to report you immediately, especially since he missed 3 meetings at work that week. So it's not like they just missed that he wasn't in his office to sign Becky's birthday card. He was literally not showing up at all. And she mentioned the autoerotic activity. So one theory is, since he supposedly watched some bondage video, maybe he had claustrophilia. So instead of being claustrophobic and hating small spaces, he would like and get off on being in confined spaces. And there was some semen found in the bathroom, but it was on the floor. If this was sexually motivated, you would expect that it would be in the bag with him. And then his landlords in, like where he used to rent the room, they came forward and said that in 2007, one night at about 1:30 in the morning, they heard Gareth yelling for help. And they found him in only his shorts, laying on the bed with his hands tied to his bedposts. They asked what he was doing, and he said he was trying to see if he could get out of it. So maybe he was trying to see if he was able to get out of a situation if he ever got in a sticky situation because of work, you know? But they felt like this was a sexual thing.
Still, it's a leap from being able to, lock yourself into a bag.
Yeah, there's a difference in tying to a bedpost.
I mean, you got to think too. Well, I don't know. Was this like one of the things where, was he gay?
They think he was. A lot of speculation is that he was. He'd never told anybody he was, but a lot of speculation is that he was.
And is that still frowned upon up, with his work?
We will actually talk about that in a second. Yeah.
Because, that it just has this, like I said, I mentioned Alan Turing and everything. And that was a whole thing with him, is like
right. Right.
He had a boyfriend that came in that stole his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he called the cops to report a robbery, and, the cops were like, who was it? Who was it? And then he finally says, it was my lover or whatever. That then he was in trouble.
Right. Because homosexuality was illegal.
Back then, yeah. That was a long time ago. That was way before.
Long before this, yeah.
Yeah, this. A lot of people are a lot more understanding now.
Yes. Yes.
But that's what I'm wondering. Was it something like that? If it is,
we'll touch on it.
That's horrible.
We'll touch on it. So his family too said that he always calculated risk. Which makes sense. So he wouldn't have risked suffocation without like having an escape plan. And there are reports that the FBI did their own investigation, but on the paperwork that I found in the FOIA, it seems that they just helped out by checking into what he did in Vegas. So that release was how we know where he stayed and what he spent, stuff like that. And there was an inclusive, there were inclusive fragments of DNA components from at least 2 people found on the bag, reportedly. And there was a Mediterranean couple seen entering the communal entrance in June or July, so they looked into them too, but they ruled them out. So they did a coroner's inquest in March of 2012. And the family's lawyer said either a second person was there on the 16th when he died, or broke in after and stole stuff. But the police say there's no evidence to support that. The doors and locks had been removed by the time police experts got involved. So I don't know how secure it is if it has no locks or doors. It also came out that the DNA, they found some DNA on his hand, but it turned out that that was contamination from one of the forensic scientists. So it wasn't like
contaminating the evidence.
Yeah, it was one of theirs, not a separate person.
Whatever.
At least they were able to realize that. Now, 2 experts tried 400 times to reenact this to see if they could lock themselves in the bag, and they could not. Rumor is that it has actually been done a couple of times by other people, but that shows that it's damn near impossible. Maybe they're contortionists. That's not fair. That wouldn't be a fair thing. And then on the last day of the hearing, the Metropolitan Police's Counterterrorism Command, the SO-15, failed to tell the senior investigating officer about 9 memory sticks and other property in Gareth's locker at the SIS office. So they made it all the way to the last day of the inquest, and then they're like, oh yeah, and we have these 9 memory sticks.
9 memory sticks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild.
So was they like or like work memory sticks or personal memory sticks?
So they were personal. Yeah. So they're from the outside. Now, the way this building is described, it is very secure. You can't just bring in electronics, even cell phones. That's a fireable offense unless you have permission. Otherwise, you would have to smuggle them in. And they have too much secret sensitive information in there. So if he smuggled them in to copy some information, why leave them there? Like, why not take them with him when he went home?
Huh.
Yeah. That increases the risk of getting caught. You need to get in, get your shit, and get out.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is like when you go into something like that, it's like they search you.
Yeah, they said they also have like detectors in there that can detect electronics. And so they would find it. If he had something and it was working, they would find it.
Yeah, I mean, they make you empty everything.
Yeah. So maybe he did have permission, and maybe that's why it took them so long to say that they had them. See what I mean?
Yeah.
From what I've seen, nothing was reported to show what was on them, and then they were wiped. So now nobody will ever know what was on them. That could be suspicious or just sensitive government information. So it's really easy to kind of cover things up in a case like this, I'm guessing. The coroner went as far as to say that SIS being involved in the death was a legitimate line of inquiry for the police. She's like, you need to look into the SIS people. Mm-hmm. Gareth reportedly had recently qualified for operational deployment and had worked with U.S. national security agencies and FBI agents. So the U.S. State Department requested that the details of what he did for us were left out of the inquest. And then alongside that, the Foreign Secretary signed a public interest immunity certificate so that his work in the U.S. joint operations would also be left out of the inquest.
Some top secret shit.
Top secret. Nobody can know. Very hush hush.
Oh, sorry.
The coroner's inquest did prompt a reinvestigation of the case, so that's cool. They looked into it for another 12 months. And then Metropolitan Police Deputy Assistant Commissioner Hewitt said that they looked at all of the evidence, even looked into new leads, but they came to the same conclusion, that the most probable scenario was that he had died alone in his flat in London as a result of accidentally locking himself
himself in the bag.
Yep.
I can't see how he would have done that to himself without leaving fingerprints.
Right. Right.
Golly, man.
A lot of people feel like that.
Dumb.
This is one that gets Darren
stupid.
riled. So let's talk about something else that came out later. Ready? I'm going to have to explain it first. I didn't know this was a thing, but it is legit. In 2008, the UK started what is referred to as the Golden Visa Scheme, also known as the Tier 1 Investor Visa Program. The purpose was to bring money into the UK, so wealthy foreign investors could pay a minimum of £2 million, which is 2.5 million US dollars, to apply for residency. So if you paid £2 million, you could receive permanent residency in 5 years. Or you could fast track that and get it in 2 years if you paid them £10 million. Now, this attracted all sorts of people, as you can imagine.
Hell of a deal.
Right? You want to come live here? Give me
Hell of a
monies.
deal.
Now, 60% of the first 3,048 visas that were given were to Chinese and Russian nationals. It seems that there was an influx of Russian defectors heading to the UK, followed up allegedly by assassins. So, you head over for a visit, you take someone out, you head back home, people are none the wiser. Well, rumor is that when that would happen, it was just swept under the rug.
Oh, yeah, I bet they were.
Yeah. Now, that program did finally end in February of 2022. And this plays into our story because in September and October of 2015, Boris Gorbachev, a former major in the KGB who was one of those who deflected from Russia, he said that sources from Russia said the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, so the SVR, was responsible for Gareth's murder. And this was printed in the papers, so the police didn't follow up because they said there was no evidence. They called this defector evidence, which can't always be trusted as fact. Yeah. So
Well, didn't that put a target on his back?
I mean, if you're a Russian who goes to London and says, hey, they did it.
Well, I mean, defector evidence is better than no evidence.
There is that. Now, he was in the UK under witness protection, so he had a different identity and stuff. He was still doing things and says he's had multiple attempts on his life already. But what he said was that the SVR had tried to blackmail Gareth into becoming a double agent, which he respectfully declined. But allegedly, he did tell them that he knew there was a Russian spy in the GCHQ, and that he knew who that spy was. So according to Boris, this left them no other option except to eliminate Gareth to protect that spy's identity. And that they killed him by an untraceable poison introduced into his ear. Turning up the heat to speed up decomp meant that they would definitely not be able to detect the poison. And this also sparked theories about what they were trying to blackmail him with, right? Maybe they were threatening to tell that he was gay. So this is where we get to where you were talking about.
Yeah.
There used to be a rule that you couldn't work for these specific agencies if you were homosexual, and this was one of the reasons why. So they say. It could be used as leverage in blackmail. But this was the old ways. They now have an open policy. If it's not a secret, it can't be used against you. And his family was very open, so they believe that if he was, he would have told them. So none of them believe that.
And there, there's a lot of other ways, things to blackmail people with.
Very true. Very true. Might as well shorten the list, though, if you can. So you can just cross that off the list. So let's talk about theories. As I've mentioned, they are plentiful. And there is a wide belief that the MI6 or the Russian assassins make the most sense. Even his family said that they believe the killer, quote, was a member of some agency specializing in the dark arts of the Secret Service, end quote. Dark arts. I instantly was like, oh, they're Slytherin. My bad. And there was a bunch of murders or people dying under suspicious circumstances around there that were believed to be those Russian assassins. A lot of them had a tendency to lean towards humiliating that person, like putting the victims in a compromising position or putting fruit in their mouth. They do random stuff like that. So if they believe he was secretly wearing women's clothes, why not dress him up in those clothes to have him be found like that? If they believe he was gay or into bondage, they could have done something in that direction to leave him in a compromising position. But the bondage side didn't make sense to me anyways, because could it be possible that he looked at it for a case he was working on? Maybe someone said that they were into that and he looked it up to see what it was, but then noped out, I'm out. It was only 30 minutes. Or did someone else look it up to make it look like he did? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm thinking.
Because the other phone was completely wiped.
That's all possible. Those are all decent possibilities.
All possible. Now, one thing that I didn't see much research on was, well, there was so much misreporting. We'll just go with that.
Yeah.
But they didn't really look, I think, into any like romantic relationship with someone from MI6. There was DNA from 2 MI6 agents in his flat. Maybe he was seeing one of them or both of them. They would have knowledge to wipe the things down, but maybe they missed a spot. They would have had like time to do things, but you can't get every drop of sweat, every skin cell that falls out. You can't get all that. And along the same lines, maybe it wasn't even a romantic relationship. What if he stumbled onto something he shouldn't have and was just taken out? Nobody's questioning why these 2 agents were in his flat. And maybe they had stayed there before at some point. This was a safe house. So maybe other agents had stayed there. There's so many things. But you know what? You could do an investigation and maybe rule that out. There was another evidence review in 2021, and the independent forensic report was given to the Metropolitan Police in November of 2023. So they came out a year later in 2024 saying there were no new findings of DNA, nor that a third party was present at the time of his death. And that's it. That is where they are with this case. Nothing else has come out. They're just sticking to the fact that he was alone and he had to be able to do this himself.
I just don't see how.
I don't see how either.
I don't see how they can sit there and, say that he zipped himself up in that bag.
Inside that bag.
With no fingerprints.
None.
And lock it.
And lock it.
And there's no access.
No.
I mean, you're talking zipping it up.
Yeah.
And then reaching out, locking. I don't even know how big the damn lock was. How big was the lock?
It's a little like what you'd see on like a gym locker. Just like a little cheap, nothing lock.
Was it a flexible bag?
Yeah. So it's called a hold all, and it's almost like a canvasy material.
Like a duffel bag?
Almost like a duffel bag, yeah. Yeah.
I mean.
And it's not very big. He wasn't very big. He was a bicycle rider, and he was like 5'9", I think. So he was real lean and, not like 6'5".
All right. Well.
But still, there's not enough room in there. There's not enough room in there. No.
Yeah.
So there we are.
But if it was flexible enough.
If he was flexible enough.
No, I mean, if it was flexible,
the
bag,
mm-hmm.
He could have had the lock hooked on one, and he could have, I don't know. He could have done something.
He could have.
Maybe. I don't see it happen.
Well, see,
I just don't see it.
The people who
being
reenacted
crammed up in there and then trying to get the lock on another piece that you can't see and then actually snapping it together.
So here's another thing. They said when they cut that along the zipper and lifted it up, the guy said the first thing I saw was a nose. So that means his face was right there. And he looked like he had been cut up, so they couldn't see the arms or anything.
Really?
Bro? How is he in this bag?
Yeah.
It just makes it even worse to me.
Well, it made more sense that he did it himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man.
It's hard to make any sense of any of this. But even a lack of evidence is evidence. So the fact that there were no fingerprints on the tub, there were no fingerprints on the lock, maybe someday the family can get some answers. But right now, it's done.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's all.
Hate to leave you on a cliffhanger. But
we don't know. But hey, I'll tell you what, you guys listen to the story, listen to it all the way through, then comment.
Yeah. What do you think happened?
What do you think happened? Because I just don't see it.
But what do you think? Russians? Inside job?
I don't know. I mean, was maybe inside job. Yeah, maybe inside job.
Interesting.
But yeah, y'all comment and I love reading. I actually read all y'all's comments, believe it or not.
Yes.
And I try to answer all y'all's comments.
Yes.
And any of them that I can't answer because you guys say specific things or whatever about the story, I always go back to, I let Amy do it because she knows these stories from front to back.
I live them. Well,
and so like most parts I can do a lot of it, but there's something that's like you're looking for a detail, and I'm like, I think I know, but I'm gonna let Amy do this one just in case, because I don't want to be wrong.
Right.
You know, because I'll admit if I'm wrong, but I don't want to be wrong, so I'm gonna let her do it.
I don't want to be wrong.
I don't want to do that. But
cool.
But anyway, thanks for listening. Tune in next time and like, share, subscribe.
Yes.
And don't forget, as always, tell your friends.
Tell your friends. Bye.